You wake in a world where gates have torn open and monsters spill out. Today they measure your power. What if you have none? You felt it before they told you. A heat behind your eyes, a pull toward the gates, as if something on the other side knew your name. They call it awakening, and it happens to ordinary people without warning. A student, a clerk, a father of two, suddenly able to feel the mana that has soaked into the world since the first gate opened. You report to the Hunters Association because the law says you must. They put you in a white room that smells of antiseptic and measure your power the way a butcher weighs meat, coldly, quickly, without looking at your face. Awakening made you a hunter. It did not make you strong. Most who awaken are weak, and weakness here is not an insult. It is a life expectancy. You wear your own clothes still. No one issues gear to the untested. You answer to a clerk with a clipboard who has measured 10,000 of you. You have heard the stories everyone has heard. The rare few who measure high and are lifted into wealth and worship overnight, flown first class to guilds that treat them like royalty. So you hope. You always hope, right up until the machine stops humming and the technician's face does not change. He writes a single letter on a plastic card and slides it across the table without meeting your eyes. That letter is now the most important fact of your life. It decides which gates you may enter, what you will be paid, and how likely you are to come home. You are a hunter now, the lowest kind, and the only way the letter ever changes is if you survive long enough to be measured again. The letter is E. The bottom. In the association's eyes, you are barely stronger than an ordinary person, and in a dungeon, ordinary people die. Your gear is whatever you could afford: a second-hand jacket, a dented blade, boots that were someone else's first. You answer to whoever leads the raid, and the raid leader does not learn your name. He learns your number, because numbers are easier to cross off a list. The work you get is the work no one else wants. The low-rank gates with thin payouts. The cleanup after a fight is already won. And the porter jobs, where stronger hunters pay you to carry their loot and walk a few steps ahead so the traps spring on you first. They call hunters like you cannon fodder, and they do not bother to say it quietly. You have seen an E-rank die. It is not heroic, and it is not slow. It is a wet sound and a gap in the formation, and then the party keeps moving because the clock on a dungeon is real and grief is not on the schedule. You go home and tell your family the work is safe. You are lying, and they know you are lying, and everyone agrees to pretend because the money is real and the rent is due. Each raid, you watch the higher ranks move like a different species, faster, surer, untouched by the fear that lives in your chest. You want what they have so badly it aches. But wanting does not raise your letter. Only the next dungeon can. So every morning you swallow the fear, check your cheap blade, and walk into the place that kills people like you. And somehow, you keep walking out. You survived enough raids that the association raised your card to D rank, and the reassessment is the first good news you have had since awakening. It still means almost nothing. You are still low, still near the bottom of every roster. But for the first time, a party wants you for your strength instead of your willingness to die first. You can kill the weakest magic beasts now without your hand shaking afterward. You can afford gear that fits. You begin to learn the grammar of a dungeon, the language no one teaches and everyone is tested on, the way the air pressure changes near a boss room, the way a gate hums a half-tone lower before it turns red and traps everyone inside. The difference between a raid that will merely be hard and a raid that will be a funeral with survivors. You learn which hunters to trust with your back and which ones will leave you on a collapsing floor without slowing down. The pay is better. The danger is exactly the same. That is the cruel arithmetic no one prints on the card. You begin to suspect the ranks measure your power but not your odds, that strength and survival are two different numbers and only one of them is stamped on the plastic in your pocket. You start saving. You start planning. You start to believe, quietly, that you might actually climb out of the bottom and live. Then a C-rank gate opens near your city. The assigned party is short 2 hunters, and the guild calls you because you are cheap and you are available. They ask if you will go. You know what the answer should be. You say yes anyway. C rank. The exact middle of the ladder and the place where most hunters quietly stay for the rest of their lives. However long those turn out to be. You are competent now. You have a specialty, a weapon you actually trust, a small reputation that fits inside a single guild. You can walk into a mid-tier dungeon and expect to walk back out. Expect, not promise. and you have learned that the gap between those two words is where people disappear. This is the rank where hunters grow comfortable, and you will come to understand that comfort in a dungeon is just a slower way of dying. You watch it happen. A C rank you admired, a steady veteran everyone trusted, gets careless on a gate rated easy and does not come home. And standing at his half-empty funeral, you finally understand the lesson the association will never put in writing: there are no easy raids. There are only raids that have not killed you yet. So you take the offer when a guild extends it. A real contract, a salary, insurance, a uniform with your name stitched over the chest. It feels like safety. It is not safety. It is a corporation that has run the numbers, calculated to the decimal exactly what your death will cost them in payouts and paperwork, and decided that cost is acceptable. You read the contract. You understand it. You sign it anyway because climbing costs money: gear, training, mana potions, the reassessment fees. The association is always happy to charge, and the guild is the only one offering to pay. You have stopped being cannon fodder. You have become an asset, which is a different word for the same thing. B rank. Now you are rare. There are not many of you, and the guilds know it, and for the first time in your life people compete to have you instead of the other way around. Your name means something in your city. You wear gear that was made for you, enchanted, fitted, paid for by a guild that wants to keep you happy. You enter high-tier gates that would kill a C-rank party in minutes, and you clear them and go home for dinner. You have power that ordinary people will never feel in their lives. Mana that moves when you call it, instinct sharpened by 100 raids into something close to a sixth sense. Strangers ask for autographs. Local reporters learn your face and your story, the underdog who clawed up from E rank, and they leave out the part where most people who start where you started are dead. The new E ranks carry your bags now and look at you with the exact hunger you remember feeling, and you try to be kind to them because you remember you could stop here. B rank is wealth, fame, a comfortable apartment, a long enough life. Plenty of good hunters retire at exactly this rung and call it a victory, and they are not wrong. But then you see an S rank work, just once, on a joint raid, and it rearranges something in you. One hunter walks alone into a gate that would have needed your entire party, and clears it without urgency, without fear, the unhurried way you might do the dishes. That is not a higher rank. That is a different category of being. You decide, against every sensible instinct you have earned, that you will reach it or die trying. You file for reassessment that week. A rank. One rung below the summit, and the air up here is thin enough to notice. There are only a handful of you in the entire country, and every guild on Earth knows your worth calculated to the decimal point, because at this altitude, a hunter is no longer an employee. You are an investment, a line item that moves markets. You raid the most dangerous gates that humans are legally permitted to enter. You have stood in a boss room where the floor was slick with the gear of the parties that came before you and failed, and you have walked out of it on your own feet. You command raid parties now. Lower ranks live or die on the calls you make in a half second, and you carry their names afterward in a private list that gets longer every year. And somewhere in here, at the edge of the hardest raids, you begin to feel something you cannot report without sounding insane. A pressure, a wrongness, the sense that the deepest dungeons are not random caves full of monsters, but something arranged, something watching you the way you once watched the S ranks from the bottom of the roster. You tell no one. You learn, at A rank, that the association's real secret was never how strong the monsters are. The real secret is how little anyone actually knows about why the gates appeared at all, who made the ranking system everyone's lives depend on, or what is waiting at the bottom of the dungeons. No one is allowed to enter twice. One rank remains above you. Every hunter who has made the jump says the same thing in the same haunted voice. The leap from A to S is not a step. It is a chasm, and most who try to cross it fall. S rank. The summit of everything the Hunters Association can measure. There are only a few of you in the entire nation, and each one is treated not as a person but as a strategic asset, a weapon. A country guards and accounts for the way it guards its missiles. When a red gate opens, when a dungeon breaks and monsters begin pouring into a city street, the evacuation order goes out, and so does the call for you, because you are the last line and everyone knows it. You enter the gates, no party can clear. You bend rules of strength that ordinary hunters die obeying. Cities sleep a little easier, simply because you exist somewhere within reach. You have wealth you cannot spend, and a fame you did not ask for, and the gratitude of millions of people who will never know your real name. And yet, standing at the very top of the ladder you spent your whole life climbing, the truth finally settles onto your shoulders with its full weight. The rank was never the ceiling. There are dungeons. The association quietly seals and erases from the records. There are beasts in the deepest gates that do not behave like animals at all, that wait, that command lesser monsters, that scheme, that rule. You climbed a ladder of letters from E to S, certain the top letter was the end of the climb. And now you stand on the highest rung and realize the ladder was only ever the small, human-shaped part of a structure that rises far past anything a letter could describe. Above the letters, there are no more letters. There are titles older than the association. There are thrones. And something on one of them has been watching the whole climb. National level. Beyond. S. Beyond ranking entirely. There are only a handful of beings like you on the whole planet, and your power is no longer measured against other hunters. It is measured against armies, against navies, against the GDP of the nations that desperately want you on their side. You are not ranked anymore. You are counted, carefully, the way the world counts warheads. When you enter a gate, the disaster simply ends. The cameras arrive to film the aftermath because no one is fast enough to film you. When you choose not to go, a city is lost, and everyone understands that the choice was yours to make. You have reached the exact place you dreamed of from the bottom of that cold white testing room, the summit every E-rank stares up at. And from up here, finally, you can see the whole shape of the world. And the shape is wrong. The gates were never an accident of physics. The ranking system was never designed by humans. Above the national level hunters sit the rulers and the monarchs, powers that treat the single strongest human being alive as one ordinary piece in a game far older than the first gate. And above even them, on a throne carved from shadow, sits the one the entire system has been quietly climbing toward since the beginning. You spent your whole life racing to the top of the human ladder, and you reached it, and at the top you found a door, and behind the door, a staircase so vast it makes your entire impossible climb look like the first single step. You wake the day after the gates opened. You were the strongest human being alive. And it was never, ever going to be enough. 8 ranks. One door at the top no human was meant to open. Most hunters die before the 3rd letter. Next time we leave this world for a different ladder, on an endless sea where the coat says justice. Subscribe and keep climbing.